After being moved to the Atlanta Dream, Angel Reese was essentially made fun of by her new teammates at the welcome news conference before she had even played a game. There was an unsettling hush in the room when one of her new teammates said something so chilly. These are not external haters. These are her own teammates, with whom she is expected to win a title, and they already seem to be at odds with her. We will arrive at precisely what was said in a minute, but before you do, you must comprehend the complete picture of how Angel Reese smilingly entered that skyscraper after setting fire to every bridge in Chicago. What precisely did Atlanta sign up for then? Do you believe Angel Reese will be fired by Atlanta this season? Tell me in the comments section below. Let's now discuss the players. Introducing Alicia Gray, Nars Hillman, Ryan Howard, Angel Reese, Jordan Canada, and Banna Jones. On paper, Angel Reese's results in Chicago were quite spectacular, and based solely on the highlight packages, you would assume that this man was working on something exceptional. First season, she frequently scored double-doubles to earn an all-star selection, brought down rebounds at a record-breaking rate, and her name was in the sports news cycle for almost the entire season. However, the Sky's record at the end of the season made all those individual stats seem meaningless, because they were not even close to making the playoffs. The Bravado suddenly had trouble winning games when they selected Angel Reese, and ESPN wants me to think that this is an organizational issue. In any case, I don't believe that Angel Reese's trade had anything to do with basketball. Our Angel Reese was traded, in my opinion, because Bravado believed she was more problematic than valuable. I thought the second year would be different. Reese has played for the team for the entire season. After demonstrating her ability to perform at the WNBA level, it was anticipated that the victories would begin to match the individual honors. Rather, the skies worsened. With just 13 victories in the first season and 10 wins and 34 losses in the second, their overall record for both of Reese's seasons came to 23 wins and 61 defeats. Therefore, for her entire stay, the trajectory was heading in the wrong way. A significant portion of those rebounds came from her own missed shoots, so let's take a moment to discuss those rebounding figures. Thus, there is far less of a dominant rebounder label. Remarkable when you take that into account. You could only be this bad on purpose, right? It's time to start a federal investigation into Angel Reese for sports gambling. Bang! Given that the FBI is currently looking into NBA players and coaches for engaging in sports gambling, is it time to examine Angel Reese? I'm thinking about bang. It truly makes you wonder, was she throwing games? They finished last in the conference. To put things in perspective, the Sky won a championship a few seasons prior to Reese's arrival. She told everyone, "Take my over and rebounds." Trust me, I grabbed my own misses. Therefore, the franchise wasn't already in free fall, and she simply happened to be present. With her on the roster, the losses worsened rather than improved. 0 postseason appearances, 2 All-Star selections, and a steadily declining win total. However, unidentified insiders from the Sky went on record following the trade, and one of them stated directly that there has been a great deal of anxiety between the team and her, and everyone is pleased that you don't have to put up with her numerous scandals. That's not someone using social media to rant. That is a decision made by an employee of that company to record those remarks. A locker room that operates in this manner seldom ever results in a winning team on the court. It has been alleged that teammates and coaching staff spent significant sections of 2 seasons walking on eggshells. As you are all aware, Angel Reese was dealt to the Atlanta Dream. Jeff Pagliocco was eager to send her packet. I'll see you. According to accounts, Jeff Pagliocco packed Angel Reese's bags himself since he was so thrilled about moving her to Atlanta. In the end, this guy suspended Reese for actions that were damaging to the team, which is front office jargon for, "We can't keep pretending this is fine." Such suspensions don't happen overnight. They appear after the organization has been absorbing something for a long time that they are no longer able to absorb. Reese apparently missed the remainder of the season due to a back issue following the suspension, despite reports that she had been observed aboard a private plane. Take that for what it is then. Before you hear what her new Atlanta colleagues truly shouted into that microphone, all of this background is necessary, and we'll arrive at thing in a little while. Let's first examine Reese's betrayal of her Chicago teammates. The suspension is actually the least fascinating aspect of the entire narrative, since the pattern is most evident in what Reese was doing to her teammates in the months prior to that decision. Angel enters. Oh, hold on. Usually you're not present at these meetings. Well, I'm not giving it any thought. Hold on. Usually you're not present at these meetings. Wait, what's going on here? Asked Andre. Jetpack Loca? Angel, have a seat. We'll give you a few options, but we no longer want you on the team. You simply inform us of a few options for where you would like to be sent. Angel remarked, Ooh, well, let's talk about Courtney Vanderloot first. Vanderloot is a seasoned WNBA player who has earned every bit of respect in her league. Additionally, Reese publicly referred to her as old and washed up while she was recovering from an injury. Not in a private discussion, not at a moment captured on video, but in a way that was sufficiently public for Vanderloot to have to appear on camera and answer it herself. Take a moment to consider that. You are forced to defend yourself on camera by a person who should be your teammate because she is openly undercutting you when you are in pain. That's not being competitive. That's just being nasty under the guise of being honest, and Vanderloot was not the end of it. I'm not settling for the same stuff we did this year, Ree went on to say to reporters. It's non-negotiable for me. We have to acquire good players. We have to get great players. It's normal to want to win, but openly expressing it while your colleagues are still in the building is a very special form of disrespect. She eventually apologized, but the locker room and front desk saw it, and an apology doesn't change the fact that she yelled it loudly enough for everyone to hear. Listen, at her current age, we can't count on Courtney to return. Ree said, We can't rely on that, but I know she'll be a great asset for us. We need someone who has played the game, is willing to compete for a title, has some experience, and is probably a little younger. By the way, Courtney Vanderloot, a two-time WNBA champion, five-time All-Star, and two-time All-First team member, departed the New York Liberty, a championship-caliber squad to assist the Chicago. Oh my God. Oh no. Oh my God. Oh no. Courtney, don't worry. Even Reese's connection with Camila Cardardo, who was intended to be her front court partner and the player she would develop a relationship with in Chicago, is said to have collapsed because of Cardoso's body language on the floor, which occasionally gave the impression that he had mentally disregarded the entire circumstance. After the transaction, an insider pointed out that Cardoso could now go crazy without Ree getting in the way. This is a pretty obvious way of suggesting that Reese's presence was impeding rather than assisting her own colleague. Then there's the injury issue, which is difficult to overlook. Ree was also accused by insiders of fabricating a back injury late in the season in order to avoid playing for the team's remaining games and then arriving the same day on a private jet. It's not a rumor when someone within your own building makes such an accusation. They have seen this trend long enough to mention it aloud. Now let me tell you something. Teams don't move superstar players because they are vocal unless there are exceptional circumstances, which must be significant. Because they are challenging to work with, teams do not send away their cash cow. The Sky allegedly accepted 2 first-round picks by the time they made the trade, which most front offices would view as below market value for a 2-time All-Star. Nevertheless, they accepted the deal. Chicago had no intention of winning the trade. They were attempting to put a stop to something. In response, Reese described Atlanta as an angel's dream and spoke about new beginnings without saying anything in public about, "We are grateful to our Chicago fan base for their 2 years of support. The majority of press conferences are excruciatingly dull. You sit through 15 minutes of nothing in order to receive one useful soundbite, while everyone smiles and talks about wanting to win and buying in." Angel Reese's first news conference with the Atlanta Dreams wasn't that. It was a completely different thing. Additionally, she was meant to be the target of the players who were causing the greatest damage. Sighed. Actually, this is a question for everyone but Angel. How would you guys characterize the experience of playing against her over the past 2 years? Anytime Angel's been on the other side of the court, I think I've had about 30, Ryan Howard remarked, grinning in response to a question about playing against Ree during the previous 2 years. Let that land for a moment. Howard wasn't praising Reese's resilience or discussing how difficult it was to protect her. At an official team event, she was candidly telling everyone in the room on camera that Reese's defense was essentially a gift each and every time they faced off. That isn't a joke disguised as a compliment. That's a joke disguised as a compliment. In actuality, that is merely offensive. I was like, I'm not gonna lie, when I said I texted Angel the previous year. I enjoy playing against Chicago because I gave my best performance. Howard wasn't by himself either. One of Dream's top players, Alicia Gray, stepped next and said, "I told Angel, I texted Angel, and I'm not going to lie. I had a great time playing against, I had my greatest games in Chicago." Because Gray performed best against the squad Ree was meant to be leading, Gray enjoyed playing against them. In a way, the fact that Gray texted Ree to personally inform her of this makes it even more brutal because, at least, she was open and honest with her before stating it on television for the entire world to see. Well, Angel is really obnoxious. Then Naz Hillman just omitted the diplomacy completely and blurted, "Angel's annoying as hell," into a live microphone during a press conference in front of cameras without any buildup or softening. In response, Hillman stated that it was fantastic that Ree was now on their side. But by then, the damage had already been done and no one was paying attention to the recovery line. Imagine this, Angel Ree. Just now, you were traded, you are seated there, your new teammates are publicly lining up to tell a room full of reporters that you're irritating, that you can't protect anyone, and that you make their stat sheets seem fantastic while you're attempting to project a fresh start. They are not strangers. For the entire season, they will be in the locker room with her every single day. Additionally, they started the relationship by voicing their opinions on the record. Thus, the teammates of the Atlanta Dream essentially stated, "We were." The annoying remark is the one that should really worry Atlanta's front office the most because being obnoxious in a locker room doesn't mean she plays her music. "We became Jedis on the court against the Chicago Sky. We just thought about cooking their ass. Ian started roasting on the court and started cooking ribs. And chicken right there on the court." Too loud means that her presence causes friction, and the Chicago Sky have already run that exact experiment for 2 full seasons, witnessing their record deteriorate each year she was there. Before Atlanta begins producing championship merchandise, someone should watch the 2024 playoffs, as the Indiana Fever entered that first-round series against the Dream with a roster that was injured, shorthanded, and exhausted. And they managed Atlanta without exerting much effort. That's the baseline. Without Ree, the Dream was a team that was unable to defeat a weakened Fever squad that wasn't even at full strength. I believe that, Angel Reese, you should take full advantage of this opportunity with the Atlanta Dream. After all, you are playing with Ryan Howard and Alicia Gray. All you have to do is be the role player that you are destined to be. They are all stars who score 20 points per game. So, Atlanta's solution to that issue is to acquire Angel Ree, a player who has never made the playoffs in 2 years, whose team has gotten worse every season she has played, who received a suspension from her own organization, and who recently endured a press conference where her new teammates openly questioned whether she could guard anyone. That's the solution the Dream's front office came up with. Let's talk about what really changed on this roster, because it's not much. 5 of Atlanta's core players signed multi-year contracts to remain, so the Dream are essentially running back the same group that was eliminated in the first round, with Reese taking Brittany Griner's front court spot after she left for the Connecticut Sun. Grier had her own limitations at this point in her career, but she wasn't showing up to press conferences with teammates lining up to discuss how easy it was to score against her. Replacing Griner with Ree doesn't solve Atlanta's playoff issue. Rather, it just adds another layer of complexity to a roster that was already unable to complete the task. The Atlanta Dream now looks like a on paper. Atlanta should be a title contender with Ryan Howard, Alicia Gray, Brittany Griner, and now the league's best rebounder on their roster. However, I'm very suspicious because I believe Angel Reese is a poison and a toxin that has been added to that locker room. This is where it gets interesting, though. Atlanta's front office is betting that Reese's interior presence flips the equation against Indiana. But Chicago ran that same bet for 2 full seasons and ended up with a worse record each time. Caitlin Clark and the Fever aren't standing still. The team that defeated Atlanta last year despite being injured and shorthanded will only be more cohesive and dangerous going into 2026, with a fully healthy roster and another full season of Clark running that offense. Reese attracts attention and she sells seats, but jersey sales don't beat the Fever in a playoff series, and sellout crowds don't solve the defensive problems that Ryan Howard essentially described as a nightly charity event when she talked about scoring 30 against Ree every time they played. Atlanta fans are buying jerseys and tickets are selling, and that part is real. However, this is what I would advise the young ladies you mentioned on her new Atlanta team to do. Get ready to put your hands out like this and never get the ball because she's going to get the rebound, get another rebound, get another rebound, and get another rebound. I'm just fascinated by this in this way, and Scap, I'm gonna watch some Atlanta highlight clips. Starting this season, I'm gonna watch those teammates' body language when that occurs. Imagine this roster in a playoff series against Indiana the following year, with the same core that has already lost, a front court composed of a player whose own teammates made fun of her defense on camera, and a Fever team that is healthier, hungrier, and has Caitlin Clark with a full season of chemistry. Locked in with everyone around her? Before the dust from the trade had even settled, the Chicago Sky gave Angel Reese's number 5 jersey to Rickea Jackson without holding a ceremony, issuing a cordial press release, or retiring the number. Reese fans noticed right away and were upset about it, but the front office of the Chicago Sky was obviously not upset about it. You have to take a moment to consider that we're talking about retiring the number of a player who never made the playoffs, received a suspension from that same organization, and whose presence insiders described as a constant source of apprehension for everyone around her. Rickea Jackson, for what it's worth, wore number 5 in man. Florida's mother said, "Angel is slow, and her fans are just as slow as she is." They came in and stole that. The Sky gave her a number that actually meant something to her at Mississippi State and high school, which is a very clean way of saying the Reese era is completely over. Andrew Reese's fans are not too happy about the jersey number because it was Rickea Jackson's high school jersey, so she is familiar with the number 5. The slow ones? Retire 5. She might return after Sloot departs. People, you see all the moves the Chicago Sky are making now that Angel Reese has said goodbye. But this is where things get interesting because the jersey move is practically insignificant in comparison to what Chicago actually built after Reese left. The Sky signed 7-time All-Star Skylar Diggins-Smith to a 2-year contract almost immediately. In order to maintain some veteran continuity around all the new players, they signed D. Jonai Carrington, an all-defensive caliber player, traded for Rickea Jackson, one of the best offensive wings in the league, and re-signed Elizabeth Williams and Rachel Banham. They also acquired J.C.S. Sheldon via trade. Front office that suddenly had a very clear idea of what it wanted to build. Now, recall the narrative that circulated prior to the trade. Nobody wanted to play in Chicago, free agents avoided the city, the Sky was a mess, and nobody was coming to fix it. Several elite players signed almost immediately after Ree left, and that timeline isn't a coincidence that anyone can explain away. Diggins-Smith alone completely alters the appearance of Chicago's offense because she can. Azora Stevens gives them defensive versatility that the roster never had during the Ree years. You know, the dynasty starts after you, not with you. Woo! I told you that AR disease ran deep. Nobody wanted to play with that. That is wild. They actually run a real offense and create shots for teammates, which is a completely different skill set from what the Sky was building around Reese's rebounding. In addition to having a better-built roster and a locker room that insiders are already characterizing as significantly more functional, Chicago also retained both of the first-round picks that Atlanta sent over in the trade. The team that everyone believed lost the trade added a 7th-time All-Star within days of the deal going through, and Reese supporters are on social media calling for a retirement ceremony for a number that's already hanging in someone else's locker. Angel Ree is in Atlanta wearing a new jersey. And her own teammates have already told you on camera that she can't guard anyone and that she's annoying before she's even played a minute. Leave a comment below and let us know if you genuinely believe Atlanta will make the playoffs with her on the roster, because the over/under on locker room drama there is set extremely high and the season hasn't even tipped. Let me know in the comments below if you think Atlanta will fire Angel Reese this season. Like, subscribe, and turn on all notifications so you never miss out. Click the video on the screen, and we'll see you in the next one. The Fever defeated Atlanta last year without a full lineup, and Caitlin Clark and Indiana are returning in 2026 with everyone healthy.